Gary, Indiana, the most depressing city in the United States. Gary, Indiana is often referred to as the most depressing city in the United States, and it's not hard to see why. In this video, we'll take a look at some of the factors that make this statement true. City overview. Gary, Indiana is located in the Midwest region of the United States. The city is situated on the southern shore of Lake Michigan and is known for its heavy industry, which includes steel production and manufacturing. The city has a current population of just over 75,486 people. Gary is a relatively young city, having been incorporated in 1906. The city's economy was initially based on agriculture and transportation. However, with the arrival of the steel industry in the early 19th century, Gary's economy shifted to a heavy industry, which led to a population boom and the emergence of Gary as the second major city. The city was known for its affluent African-American population and was home to several famous black entertainers, including Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, and Freddie Gibbs. Gary, Indiana was a major stop on the Chitlin Circuit, a network of venues that were safe for black performers during the era of segregation. Regarding arts and culture, Gary is home to several museums, theaters, and a symphony orchestra. But despite its cultural offerings, the 2019 report named Gary, Indiana as the most depressing city in the United States. It is allegedly due to the decline in the steel industry in recent years, leading to high levels of unemployment and poverty. The study looked at various factors such as income, employment, suicide, and divorce rates to determine why this city is most down in the dumps. The downfall. Gary was once a thriving industrial town, but the steel industry's decline has left Gary struggling to find its footing. The downfall is attributed to the increasing use of automation and robotics in factories, declining number of jobs in the steel industry. Another reason is that the steel industry is facing increased competition from other countries, such as China, which have been able to produce steel at a lower cost. It has led to a decline in the demand for steel products, which has harmed the steel industry in Gary. Finally, the decline of the steel industry in Gary can also be attributed to the fact that the city is located in an area experiencing economic decline, negatively impacting Gary's overall quality of life. Income and employment. One of the main factors contributing to Gary, Indiana, being named the most depressing city in the United States is the high levels of poverty and unemployment. The median household income in Gary is just $29,517, which is significantly lower than the national median. The steel industry's decline has led to a decrease in the city's population and infrastructure, followed by low income, unemployment, and the unimpressive quality of public services. For example, the city's public transportation system is inadequate, and many residents do not have access to reliable means of transportation. It often leaves people stranded and unable to get to work or access essential services. More particularly, 20% of Gary's buildings are abandoned, which leaves 1 out of every 5 structures in Gary, Indiana, unoccupied. One example is the former Sheraton Hotel, built initially as a Holiday Inn, which was once a luxurious hotel but became an abandoned eyesore 4 years later. The hotel was the city's attempt to boost tourism and business to the area, aiming to provide accommodations for a new convention center. However, the macroeconomic issues have affected the affordability of the hotel, hence the struggle to draw guests. The Great Steel Strike. The gap between the rich and the poor is widening, and this is having a negative impact on society as a whole. But particularly in Gary, Indiana, the initial situation of the steel industry forced the employees to work long hours with little pay. In some cases, workers were not given breaks and were mandated to work in dangerous conditions. This event led to the Great Steel Strike of 1919, where workers went on protest to demand better working conditions and higher wages. The strike successfully united the workers and highlighted the importance of fair wages. Without a livable salary, people cannot support themselves or their families, leading to negative consequences such as poverty and crime. A livable wage would provide employees with the necessary income to cover basic needs such as housing, food, and transportation. However, the steel companies broke the union because of the racial issue, the threat of Russian socialism, and the weak organization of the strikers. The workers had no choice but to return to work under the same poor conditions and resume production. This unfortunate event hurt Gary, Indiana, and contributed to its decline. Crime rate. High poverty and unemployment have led to increased crime in Gary. The city has a violent crime rate of 5.40 per 1,000 people, significantly higher than the national average of 4.01 per 1,000 people. Crimes including murder, rape, robbery and assault are all too common in Gary, but the most prevalent crime is theft. In fact, there were 3,137 relative cases in Gary in 2017 alone. The high crime rate has made it difficult for Gary to attract new businesses and residents. As a result, the city has become increasingly isolated, which has only furthered its decline. In addition to the high levels of violence, Gary also has a high property crime rate, nearly double the national average. A large number of abandoned buildings in Gary may have provided the opportunity for these criminal activities. However, it is essential to note that most crimes are non-violent, such as theft and burglary. Depression and suicide rate. The high suicide rate in Gary, Indiana is another factor that has led to the city being deemed the most depressing in America. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, the suicide rate in Gary is 17.9 per 100,000 people, which is significantly higher than the national average of 11.4 per 100,000 people. Gary's high depression and suicide rate are likely due to the widespread problems of Gary, Indiana, comprising of high levels of poverty, unemployment, and high level of crime. According to the residents, the situation often leads to hopelessness and despair, leaving many people with no other choice. People may also feel unsafe in their homes, but may be too afraid to leave because the options are limited. Racial discrimination. Racial discrimination is another factor that has contributed to Gary's decline. The city has always been a majority black city, and the white population has gradually decreased over time. However, the black community has not been able to benefit from the same opportunities as the white community. For example, black residents could not own property in certain city areas and were often excluded from good jobs. The lack of opportunities has led to frustration and anger among the black community, sometimes resulting in violence. There were racial riots in Gary, which damaged many businesses and caused several injuries and deaths. These events have made Gary a city often associated with crime, poverty, and racial tension. As a result, it has become increasingly difficult for the town to attract new businesses and investments. Divorce rate. The high divorce rate in Gary is another disappointing factor that makes it the most depressing city in the United States. Even though Gary didn't make the cut of the highest divorce rate, it still records 8% among the cities in Indiana. The main factor is, again, the overall situation of the city, comprising high levels of poverty, unemployment, and crime. These problems often put a strain on relationships and can lead to divorce. In addition, the high suicide rate in Gary may also be a factor, as it suggests mental health problems and difficulty maintaining a healthy relationship. People stand still. The residents of Gary, Indiana have been through a lot in recent years, having to live in the most miserable city in the United States. Gary has been through economic decline, high levels of crime, racial tension, and more, and these problems have led to a high suicide rate, depression, and divorce. Each resident has their own story, but they are all connected by the common thread of living in Gary, Indiana. While the city has its problems, the residents of Gary have shown remarkable resilience. They have fought to keep the city alive despite the difficult circumstances and continue to hope for a better future. The people are what make the city of Gary, Indiana special and unique. Despite all the problems, they have not given up on their city. True to their reputation, the people of Gary, Indiana continue to stand still and fight for their city. The place might seem like a lost cause to some, but the people who live there know it's worth fighting for. They have seen the city at its best and believe it can be great again. With their determination and resilience, anything is possible for the city of Gary, Indiana. Do you think Gary, Indiana will ever be able to turn around? What do you think it will take for the city to improve? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe, comment, and turn on the notification bell. This is Learning Canteen.